Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Online with the CMC, Spilling the Tea with the CMC Virtual Internships. Andie Batt and Veronica Gomez are going to present. Take it away, ladies.
Thank you, Pam, and welcome to Spilling the Tea with the CMC Virtual Internships. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming and big shout out to our internship supervisor, Pam. She's great, and we really appreciate all of her support through this process. We'll take your questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to type your questions in the chat box at any time. The presentation slides are on L2, and the slides of the notes will be added to L2 after the presentation. All right, next slide, please, Veronica.
Here we go.
So we have on our agenda today a few different cups of tea for you to enjoy. First, we'll tell you some more about ourselves, why we decided to intern with the CMC, our various projects, and our ideas for the future of virtual internships at the CMC. So let's get into it. Right.
Here it goes.
Next slide.
Hold on. There we go. Having a bit of a lag, it looks like. Apologize for that.
Well, hello everyone, that's me. My name is Andie Batt and I am a MLIS student intern here at the CMC. I've worked in academic libraries for several years and I've recently decided to pursue cataloging and digital asset management. I would describe myself as an aspiring information professional with a passion for promoting equitable access to information. I just graduated this month with my Master's of Library and Information Science from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I also just recently moved into my first home in Andrew, North Carolina with my husband and my 2 cats.
There we go. Hello, I'm Veronica Gomez. I am the other intern from UNCG. I was also in the MLAS program as well. Pretty much since I was a kid, library's been pretty, it's been like a magical kind of place for me, and I've always been fascinated with books. So that helped guide me to get a bachelor's in English with my undergrad and pursued a master's program in LAS as well. I also have a ton of volunteer experience since my dad's been in the military for over 30 years. So that really, bless. So being in the military and helping out other military families with events and so on is really giving me a love for helping other people. So that really guided me to wanting to help others in the library.
So now that we've introduced ourselves, let's spill some CMC tea. I'm sure some of you might be wondering, how did 2 North Carolina-based grad students end up here? Well, I'll tell you exactly why we both decided to spend our spring semesters interning with the CMC. On the next slide. So in terms of finding the CMC, during the fall of 2021, we were both searching for internship opportunities for the spring. One of the most helpful tools for finding the CMC's internship opportunities was our university's job listing page on the LIS department website. By connecting with different universities, any organizations that are interested in interns can more easily get connected to MLIS graduate students that are looking for these learning opportunities. See, when you intern at the CMC, you get a variety of beneficial opportunities for learning and growing as a cataloging professional. Firstly, as an intern, you get to support the mission of the CMC. As I'm sure many of you are already aware, the mission of the CMC is to provide cataloging support to Illinois Library System members. Veronica and I both thought that this was an amazing opportunity to support a mission that we both truly cared about. And we were really drawn to the idea of providing free cataloging services to public libraries. We also were interested in this internship opportunity because we would get to work with a passionate and knowledgeable team of catalogers. And this is an aspect that we definitely did not take for granted because it really is rare to work with multiple catalogers like this at once. We both wish that cataloging maintenance centers like this one were more common, so we're really grateful for the opportunity that we had to work with the CMC. And lastly, we were interested in the flexibility and accessibility of a virtual internship experience since we're both busy online graduate students. By completing our internship experiences remotely, we were both able to work with a team of people that we never would have otherwise, and we had the freedom to work on projects at different times and locations. Now that we told you why we chose the CMC, we'd like to tell you a little bit more about our individual virtual internship experiences. Veronica and I both had the pleasure of job shadowing the lovely cataloging team several times throughout our internships. During these job shadowing sessions, we were given a peek into the daily responsibilities of catalogers. As novice catalogers, we were definitely comforted to see how often the OCLC bid formats page was visited, since at least I was partially convinced prior to this internship that you cataloging wizards just had all this stuff memorized. Now that's not to say that we didn't see our fair share of impressive standards knowledge, but it was definitely not as intimidating as we had previously thought going into this internship. Additionally, we saw different examples of cataloging for items such as audiobook sets or new children's books. In particular, I'd say one of the most helpful and entertaining learning sessions was the Catalogers Unite meeting. I'm sure some of you were there. And during this meeting, several catalogers presented records for unusual items, including a puzzle, board game, and even a dog. So these examples were really unique and helped us see how OCLC Connection is used and also how to use your best judgment and creativity for cataloging. We also saw different tracking documents that the catalogers had, which gave us a good reference for how we might keep track of our own work in our internships and our future careers. Overall, we found the job shadowing to be a key part of our internship experiences that gave us both valuable insights into the secret world of catalogers. Next, we also had a mapping project. Pam was interested in particular to see us start some research for the future mapping project of the CMC services. The main goal here was to create an interactive map that shows the libraries across Illinois that currently or previously use the CMC services. This map would provide a way for the CMC to see how its services were being utilized, what areas were not using the services, and ultimately lay the foundation for future outreach efforts. As an intern, I started looking for different mapping tools, and I honestly found it somewhat difficult to find the right digital tool just because there's so many softwares as a service and a lot of them have taken a subscription-based model, so it's not always a constant cost. However, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to start learning more about these digital tools, and I'm really glad that future interns will be taking over to see this project to fruition because I think it'll be a great asset in the future of the CMC.
So at the beginning of our internship, we were both asked to complete a cataloging quiz. It was to test our current knowledge of how to catalog, and we were told, don't worry if we couldn't fill it all the way out. And I remember getting it for the first time, like, what do all of these fields mean? It was also given to us again at the end to see how much we learned during our experience with the CMC team. And we found it was indeed much easier to fill out. And now I know what most of the fields on the top mean now. Hooray! The first and main project we were assigned to was the oral history project. This was requested from the Poplar Creek Public Library from the town of Streamwood and describing during the anniversary of their town founding. The interviews were of those present during the town's beginnings and talked about their own experiences and challenges in dealing with the infrastructure of the town being established. It was our first time doing any kind of transcriptions, and it was a slow progress. It was here that we learned to be more patient and kind to ourselves, since transcribing something is a very slow process and one that requires you to constantly rewind and go back over your work, make sure that your notes and transcriptions are correct. Other than the program problems we ran into, we found the subjects of the interviews be pretty fascinating, and we get to add on to the history of a town in Illinois. And also near the end of our internship, we were asked to catalog a couple of Braille books. OCLC showed there were no Braille versions of the books available to add on to, so we knew that was necessary to add those in, because otherwise librarians wouldn't be able to find if there are any Braille versions of books they could offer to blind Patreons. So expanding this catalog for future catalogers is always a plus. The main problem we face in doing this is that we couldn't physically have the books in person since we're a couple states away from the CMC team. So we had to rely on pictures and details sent through email by our lovely supervisor, Miss Pamela, in order to catalog it.
As we went through our virtual internships, while honestly we'll say the CMC is of course perfect, but we did come up with a few ideas for the future of virtual internships. Our ideas for the future of virtual internships at the CMC would firstly start off with including more live practice sessions because we think it could be very beneficial to future virtual interns to have more of these live sessions for cataloging, since we both found these experiences to be some of the best learning opportunities we had for cataloging. We also think that more metadata specific training and job shadowing would be a great addition to future virtual internship experiences. I know metadata is not everybody's cup of tea, but I think especially for novice catalogers who don't have a whole lot of experience or knowledge about it, it's good to have that background knowledge to really have a solid understanding of what niche you want to go into. And lastly, we think that finding ways to incorporate in-person or IRL meetups for interns and catalogers could be really helpful for future virtual interns. I know that Veronica and I are both based in North Carolina, so if you ever happen to have any North Carolina catalogers, maybe finding a way for those two to meet up maybe once in the semester could be a great way to incorporate at least one in-person meeting throughout a whole virtual internship to create sense of connection.
And here is the last sip of the tea, our conclusions. Our conclusions were that virtual internships provide experiences that have their own unique benefits and challenges. However, they also provide a level of flexibility and accessibility that wouldn't be achieved otherwise. For example, me and Andie were able to connect and network with other catalogers that are out of state. So that was a unique opportunity we were given. We were allowed to see what rules and regulations another state other than North Carolina has catalogers operate under. It was awesome to work with the CMC team, who also offers a variety of cataloging support services that are available for other Illinois libraries. Another important note to keep in mind when you're doing any kind of internships, be it virtual or in person, is that they may not go the way you planned. There can and will be personal events that will affect how the internship runs. And a big note to deal with that is to always be able to support the team and the interns when they do happen. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Andie and Veronica. Hang on, and I will try to allow everybody to unmute themselves if they want to ask questions.
Now I'll go ahead and show the slide who's on the call today.
Okay.
Oh. There we go.
It likes to
Gate is on the
disappear.
timer. It's like
Okay. So from Erica, we have great work on the presentation. What would each of you say is the most unique item you cataloged while at the CMC?
For me personally, I think it would be the Braille books, and it also didn't help. We were in person, so we can investigate it ourselves physically, so we had to rely on details and the other work of the CMC team in order to try to catalog them. And cataloging something that's out of the norm, like not a regular book, like something like a Braille book. It was pretty cool for me.
Yes, I'd also say the Braille books because the same here. I have just a picture to go off of, but I was able to find a record from somebody else that had a similar Braille book, but not exactly the same. So it was a challenge in that sense, but it was interesting to see the format for a Braille record because I'd honestly never seen one before.
Okay, we also have Eric said fantastic job, and Katie said brilliant work. And then Mary says, fun question, what is your favorite tea? If you like tea, of course.
I think my favorite tea is probably raspberry tea. I'm not like a huge traditional tea drinker. I like more of the herbal and fruit notes.
I'm not actually a tea drinker myself, but I think one of the only teas I liked over years ago was like catnip tea or something, but I don't know if it was
Ooh.
actually from catnip or if my friend was just saying something else.
She's just trying to fool you. You just never know. Okay, and I like Girl Gray if anybody cares. So Emily, who is actually our new intern, says, lovely presentation. Thank you, Veronica and Andie. I just started my internship at the CMC a few weeks ago. What advice would you give to a new intern? And what do you wish you had known when you started?
Thank
Hi,
you, Emily.
Emily.
I think my advice would be if you're able to just do a little bit every day. I know sometimes it can be hard to stick with a schedule of like having so many hours, but if even if you could do just a few minutes every day, I think it's good just to stay relevant to what your projects have because I know different things come along and you might not be able to do if you were, I don't know, your schedule maybe 2 hours every day of the week, even if you're only able to log on and do 15 minutes, that keeps that consistency. So that would be my recommendation, especially as a virtual intern.
Yeah, definitely. And my recommendation is like, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is to definitely be patient and kind to yourself. You're learning new skills that are being added onto your skill set and you're new to this, and just know that with time, you will get it. You will get that eureka moment. And one thing I would like to have known before jumping into the internship. Oh, I just lost it. I was right on the tip of my tongue.
Well, while you're thinking, just to let everybody know, so we've had interns now for a full year from both U of I here in Champaign and also from the University of North Carolina as virtual remote interns. And they either have to fulfill 100 or 120 hours of volunteer time during the semester. So just to give you an idea of what time they are giving to us.
All right. And I just remember what I wanted to know at the beginning. There's like so much different resources and such to consult, especially when you're doing fields for the cataloging. Like, just don't be afraid to like rely on other resources to help you out. You don't have to memorize everything.
Oh, please don't. Please don't memorize. No, I mean, and you know, if you do catalog for the rest of your life, you'll remember some things maybe, but hopefully, but they keep changing things. So even if you've remembered them, they've changed, which is fun. Okay, Blake says, before you started this internship, did you have any experience with cataloging or cataloging software or cataloging programs?
For me, I had some experience. Well, I know we both had to take a cataloging course for our grad school coursework, and that was my experience with more of the traditional, but I've also had some experience with more of the front end digital asset management systems, like I think particular Cortex by Orange Logic. So more of a corporate cataloging experience is what I would say I had before this. So this definitely gave me more of the traditional library cataloging experience, which I didn't have much of before the start of this internship.
For me personally, I only had a couple experiences in different classes. It was just talking about the different fields, the cataloging stuff, but this internship was the first time I actually physically actually interacted with a cataloging program and actually doing the cataloging. So
Okay, Mary says catnip tea is a real thing, Veronica,
oh.
so your friend wasn't goofing on you. And Eric says green mint. I don't know what FTW means. And Emily says big oolong fan. And Edie says Republic of Tea, orange blossom, white tea. Wow, that's okay. That sounds fancy. And Barb says Coca-Cola. I don't think that's tea, Barb. Emily says, that's great advice, Andie. I forget things without repetition for sure. And thanks for the encouragement, Veronica. I really appreciate it. Gretchen says, thank you for this presentation. Did you have input in selecting the projects you contributed to in order to meet your particular goals or interests? Or were these the projects that came up in the time frame that were conducive to virtual work? Kind of both, but I'll let them answer.
Yeah, kind of both. I'd say for the first project we did, we more or less had that given to us through Pam to get us started with the oral histories project. That's where we were needed the most at that time. But from there, we had a lot more flexibility of choosing what additional projects came up, like putting our input in. What do we want to do? Do we want to catalog a Braille book? The answer was obviously yes. And if we wanted to help, do research for like the mapping project, this whole presentation was an option that was presented to us. So we did have some input along the way of what we wanted to focus on. And yeah, I appreciated that we were able to sort of choose our own adventure that way.
Yep, pretty much what Andie said. The oral history project was one of the major ones we were asked to do at the beginning, and then near the end, we kind of asked for more cataloging, more experience cataloging with other things. So that was when the Braille book project was given to us. So we were given, we were able to input like what we wanted to learn and such.
And I do try to take into account the interests of each intern, and then look at what projects we're working on, to kind of make it, choose your own adventure, and also to give them a well-rounded internship experience. I don't want to say that Veronica and Andie kind of got stuck with working with the oral histories, but we needed to get those going. And I know that took a lot of their time because I don't know if anybody listening has had to work with oral history transcriptions, but it's slow and challenging work. So good job on that. Edie asked, did you find that you like cataloging?
I would say yes, once I get into like understanding what everything meant and it was not a huge confusing mess. I would say I would enjoy cataloging, looking up details, pretty much taking my time, like if I was hurried, if I was like meeting a deadline, then maybe that would be different, but like it definitely needs you to take your time and go at your own pace, which I definitely appreciate.
I also would say like cataloging. I think I'm learning more of what areas of cataloging I like, more specifically, probably, I know this might sound a little crazy, but I like the more repetitive work and not necessarily having a bunch of unique, challenging items. That would probably be more like a once a week rather than an everyday, give me all the challenging items. I'd like to get into the repetitive groove of knowing this is the set of things I have and these are the fields. So for me, that's what I like.
And I think that's pretty typical of most catalogers. Unfortunately, the CMC catalogers don't always have that option, but that's okay. So Erica said that mapping project sounds like a neat idea to extend the CMC's reach in our state. Yes, and I've been talking about it for over a year, Erica, so I really need to get going on that. And I have, it's just going to take some work. Barb says, great presentation. Would you go over what you were saying about metadata again? Was there a specific thing, Barb? Did you
I
mean about the
know
project? Go ahead, Andy.
in the presentation, I know we mentioned metadata for, I think, future ideas, and that was more the area that we didn't get a whole lot of experience with. So that's just something that we were looking to maybe have, I guess, expanded upon in the future, just because, due to the circumstances that I'm sure you guys are aware of with the whole metadata situation in the spring, it was not necessarily easy for us to get that experience. So that's just something we'd want for future interns.
You mean more like working with content DM and stuff? Because the oral histories are, I mean, that transcribing falls under the purview of the metadata cataloger, but
Right.
it's more of the grunt work, so to speak. But it has to be done.
Yes.
So, all right, Barb, if we didn't answer your question, ask again. All right, Anna says FTW means for the win, I believe. Thank you, Anna. Sorry, I'm old and dumb. Yoko says, questions for CMC. Do you have an established internship program? Yes. Do library schools or students usually reach out to you individually for internship opportunities? Yes, students usually do reach out, but I mostly worked with, like I said, U of I and UNC. But if you are interested, you can email me and I'll put my email in the chat. But those are good questions. Barb says, thanks, Andy. So I guess you answered her question. Mary says, so maybe getting a chance to job shadow someone uploading to either creating metadata for images, essentially. Yeah, and that's what Heidi did with previous interns, I believe. No, I don't know that they weren't given the permission to actually do any uploads to IDA because the CMC uses the Illinois State Library's content DM, and we have to get profiles created through them. So we don't really own the content DM that we are using, if that makes sense. Yes, so if you or anybody is interested in internships, go ahead and email me. I think I caught up with all the questions. And if you were here when the etiquette slides were running, this is our last one for this fiscal year, but we will be presenting again in August, and I will get our FY 2023 titles and descriptions uploaded to L2 as events. And I think, as Andy mentioned earlier, I will upload today's presentation with the notes after the presentation, and I'll send out the recording link once that is sent to me. Did anybody else have any other questions about internships? We do have a policy here, and I do have a little exit survey that I asked the students to fill out when they're finished with their internship. We also have on L2 for today's event an evaluation. If you guys could fill that out and send that to me as well. We just want to see how this went, what we can improve on with our online with the CMCs. And I believe for next fiscal year, we'll be moving to the second Thursday, the same time, 10 to 11 a.m. If you don't have any questions about today's presentation, you can ask us some general cataloging questions as well. And Yoko says, thanks. Well, I'm waiting to see if there are any other questions. I just want to thank Andy and Veronica for being really good interns. I know the three of us kind of had a not great spring, but we all survived it. And I hope you guys learned what you wanted to learn. I know there's always more to learn. Erin says, enjoy the presentation. Thank you. And Mary says, excellent job. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to stop the recording, and hopefully all of you will attend our